مرحبا كيفكن؟ Let's take a look at the demonstratives بالعربي الفصحى. أسماء الإشارة. I'm gonna make another video for the Shami dialect, Levantine dialect. However, this one is gonna be purely fusha. My material is based on my book, iMasterArabic Level A1. To get more information about the book, visit my website. Okay, أسماء الإشارة. Demonstratives are the nouns we use to demonstrate something, and in Arabic, al-ishara means demonstration, so we're pointing to something. When we're pointing or talking about something, there are two perspectives. You have stuff that is within reach, so you can see it, you're pointing to it, it's not far. And you have stuff that can be far away or even that you cannot see. If you're talking about something, you know, that man we saw last time, we don't see it anymore. Okay, so these two aspects are important. However, what is also very important is the gender of who and what we are pointing at. If we're pointing to a male or to a female, or to a masculine object or a feminine object, that means that it's very important in Arabic to know regarding objects whether they are masculine or feminine. More information on this subject you can find in this book on page 78, صفحة 78. There I explained to you which words are masculine, which words are feminine. However, now in a nutshell, it's easier in Arabic to know which objects are feminine and which are masculine because of the letter ta marbuta. Okay, the ta marbuta indicates a feminine word. There are very few exceptions where a masculine word ends with ta marbuta. However, most words that end with ta marbuta are feminine. You have also the obvious words like ukht, mother, sister. Obviously, they don't finish with ta marbuta. However, they are feminine. And you have all cities in the whole world are all feminine. And you have most countries are feminine for a few exceptions, which I also mentioned in my book. لبنان, المغرب, السودان, الصومال, اليمن, العراق, والأردن. Okay, let's move on now to أسماء الإشارة, the demonstratives. We'll start first with the demonstratives that are close by. So we are able to demonstrate them, we can see them, and they're within reach. Okay, we have, as I told you, the gender is important. Also, whether our object, which we are pointing at, is human or non-human. What is also important is whether our object is singular, dual, or plural. This will affect which demonstrative we use. So this table shows you which demonstrative to use when you're pointing to an object or to a person if it's close by, so within reach. If our subject or subject we are pointing at is a human and he's male, so we use هذا. In this example, I have هذا طالب, which translates to this is a student. I used هذا because طالب is a singular masculine male. Okay, let's continue with the singular. If my subject is human female, I use هذه. هذه طالبة. طالبة demonstrates a female student because of the ta marbuta. So هذا is masculine, هذه is feminine. If the subject or the object I'm pointing to is if the object I'm pointing at is non-human and male, like kitab, I use هذا again. So there's no difference here between human and non-human. هذا kitab. This is a book. If the object I'm pointing at is a female object, like سيارة, how do we know it's female? Because of the ta marbuta. I use هذه again, same as with human. So هذه سيارة. So let's repeat. هذا for both human and non-human, masculine, and هذه for both human and non-human, feminine, singular. Let's go to the dual form. If the subject I'm pointing at is human, masculine, two persons, so these two persons can be two men or a man and a woman, then my demonstrative would be هذان. هذان, هذان طالبان. So the ani here shows that these are two students. We don't need the number two, its name. It's not needed. Ani, it means two. This translates to these are two students. If these two students are both female, I use هتان. هتان طالبتان. Repeat. This translates to these are two female students. If the two objects I'm pointing at are non-human, masculine, I used again هذان, same as with human. هذان كتابان. Repeat. هذان كتابان. This translates into these are two books. If the two objects I'm pointing at are non-human, feminine, so like سيارة, I use هتان as a demonstrative. هتان سيارتان. Repeat. هتان سيارتان. So notice again here, there is no difference between human and non-human. There is a difference for genders, but not for human, non-human. For human, masculine, I used here هذان. For non-human masculine, I used هذان. For non-human feminine, I used هاتان. That was human feminine. For human feminine, I used هاتان. For non-human feminine, I used هاتان again. Moving on to the plural. The demonstrative I use for plural humans is هؤلاء. Repeat it. It's a difficult word with two hamzas. هؤلاء. هؤلاء. And then students is طلاب. So this is a human plural. That's why I used هؤلاء. This translates to these are students. If these students are all female, all of them with no exception, then that would be طالبات instead of طلاب. However, I would still use the same demonstrative, surprisingly enough. So هؤلاء طالبات. Repeat. هؤلاء طالبات. This translates into these are female students. If my object is a plural non-human, masculine, I use هذه. So here I use the feminine singular demonstrative for a plural non-human. Notice I'm going to use it again, and I'm going to use it again. Same one if my plural non-human is feminine. So it doesn't matter here the gender. So notice with plural, here masculine, feminine, I use the same demonstrative. For non-human, I use the same demonstrative for masculine and feminine. So what matters here is whether it's human or non-human and not the gender. So these are books is هذه كتب. These are cars. هذه سيارات. ماشي? Now, let's suppose all these words that I'm pointing at, my subjects and my objects, are definite, which means that they have an article here. So, هذا الطالب. The translation would change in this case. It becomes this student. Not this is a student, but this student. So, but then I would need to continue my sentence. This student is Rami. So, هذا الطالب هو رامي. Okay? This applies to all of these examples. Let's take a few. So here I would add again the L as an article. It becomes هذان الطالبان. The translation becomes these two students. So it's not anymore a nominal sentence. Without the L, it was a nominal sentence, a complete sentence with is, verb to be, in the middle. By adding the article, we're changing it from a nominal sentence to just actually a part of a sentence, a demonstrative with a noun only. So these two students, هذان الطالبان. Here, هؤلاء الطلاب becomes, can you guess? These students. And I would need to continue the sentence. These students are happy, let's say. هؤلاء الطلاب فرحون. هذه الطالبة becomes this female student. هتان الطالبتان becomes these two female students, etc. So for all of them, just by adding the article L, you remove the copular verb to be from that sentence. It becomes these female students. And you would need to continue the sentence, or it would be an answer to the question, like who's sitting there? These students. So هؤلاء الطالبات. And again, if you want to change it into a nominal sentence, which is this is a female student, you would simply remove the L. هذه طالبة, and you would get your nominal sentence with copular verb to be. Clear? واضح? Let's move on to the demonstratives, أسماء الإشارة, when your subject or your object you're pointing at is far away or is not even in sight. You are talking about it, referring back to it. Okay? So let's say you are saying that student which was here last week is very nice. Okay? So the demonstrative here would be ذلك. Notice here I have two for human masculine singular. I have ذاك and ذلك. There's a slight difference between the two. ذاك means that the student is far away, but I can still see him. ذاك الطالب means that student. So I'm pointing to him, but he's far, you know, not this one, but that one. Okay, and ذلك would be when you're talking about the students, but he's totally out of sight. Just like in my example, that student who was here last week. ذلك الطالب. If the student is female, I would use تلك. تلك الطالبة. That female student. Non-human masculine. My object is a book. That book is ذلك الكتاب. Again here, or ذاك. By the way, both of these you could have used them for الكتاب because whether it's human or non-human doesn't matter when it's singular. What matters is the gender. So ذلك الكتاب is that book, and that car is تلك السيارة. So again here I use the same demonstrative as that student. The dual form. So we're talking now about two subjects or two objects. If these two are human masculine, الطالبان, I would use ذانك. ذانك الطالبان. I noticed there's a mistake here. So there should be an alif here. We're missing an alif. Okay, sorry about that. متأسفة. So ذانك الطالبان is those two students. Now, the two students, both of them are female. I would use تانك. So ذانك الطالبتان. Those two female students. If my object is non-human dual masculine, I would use ذانك again. So here again, whether it's human or non-human, it doesn't matter. I use ذانك again. ذانك الكتابان. If my whatever I'm pointing at is non-human feminine, dual, two things, so two cars, those two cars is ذانك السيارتان. Let's move on to the plural. I'm pointing at many students now, okay, and they could be all male or they could be some male, some female, or one male and 100 females. I would still use that one. So those students. أولائك الطلاب. Repeat that one. It's also difficult. Two hamzas. أولائك. أولئك الطلاب, those students. Now, the students are all female with no exception. I would use أولئك again. Gender doesn't matter when we're talking plural demonstratives. أولئك الطالبات is those female students. Now my object is non-human. Now remember, just like when we're pointing at things that are close by, the gender doesn't matter when it's plural. What matters is whether it's human or non-human. So here I would use tilka, which is feminine singular, that one. Tilka al-kutub translates into those books. And here my object is plural feminine, non-human. Again I use tilka. Tilka السيارات translates into those cars. So again, when we're talking singular or dual, we use the same demonstratives for human and non-human, however different demonstratives for masculine, feminine. Masculine, feminine. When we're talking plural, gender doesn't matter. We use the same demonstratives for masculine, feminine. However, what matters is whether they're human or non-human, students or books. Then we use different demonstratives. You're probably wondering, why do we use the singular masculine for a plural of things? Here we use tilka, and back to the close by we used هذه, which was the singular feminine. This is because in Modern Standard Arabic, the non-human plural is considered singular feminine. This affects not only the demonstrative you're using, however, the whole sentence. The verb you would use with tilka al-kutub would also be singular feminine, and everything else in that sentence. Grammatically, a non-human plural in Fusha is considered as singular feminine. Before we finish, just a quick note about the case ending for demonstratives. I didn't go into that in detail. However, what I can tell you is when it is a nominal sentence like this one, this is a book, then it is always in the rafa. So it would be هذا كتاب. Okay, and I use tanween because this is indefinite. Okay, always for a nominal sentence, the case ending is the nominative, which is الرفع. However, when it's not a nominal sentence anymore, like here, also here, هذا الطالب, this student, what would be the case ending here? It depends on whether هذا الطالب in that sentence is the subject or a direct object, or after a preposition. It depends on the position of هذا الطالب in the sentence. If it's the subject of the sentence, then the case ending is the nominative, which is الرفع. If it's the direct object of the sentence, the case ending would be النصب, which is the accusative. And if it's after a preposition, it would be jar, which is the genitive, and it would end then with a kasra. Okay, the sign, reminder, the sign of the nominative is the dhamma or the tanween, nominative, rafa. The accusative, nasb, is a fatha or tanween double fatha. and the sign of the jar, which is the genitive, is the kasra or the double kasra for the tanween. Okay, but this is another subject. One last note, back to that one. What we didn't talk here is how do I change this to a nominal sentence? It's by removing the L now. If I want to change this to that is a student, I would remove L. It would become تلك طالبة. ذلك كتاب would be that is a book. تلك سيارة would be that is a car. Okay? Hope it's all clear now. If you have questions, you can drop me a comment and don't forget to subscribe and to like. يلا بشوفكن.